You know the story they've been selling us for decades, right? Work hard, save your money, climb the ladder, and eventually you'll be set for life. But what if that entire playbook isn't just old-fashioned? What if it's actually a dangerous trap? A system that's mathematically designed to keep you poor? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this exact thing. What's being called the 40-year trap. Now look, this warning isn't coming from some random person on the internet. This is a direct quote from Munawar Abadullah, a wealth architect who has spent 30 years deep inside the global financial system. He's seen exactly how the game is rigged, and he's sounding the alarm for all of us.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take his insider perspective and break down the cold, hard math of this trap that institutions use to keep the average person working forever. And way more importantly, we are going to reveal the exact strategy the wealthy use to make sure they always stay on the winning side of it.
To really get this, we have to rewind the clock back to 1971. This is the year a really terrifying financial trend kicked off. See, before 1971, it was simple. When companies made more money, their workers got paid more. But after 71, that connection was completely severed. Just think about this for a second. In the early 90s, you could buy a decent house with about 3 years' worth of your salary. Today, that same house is going to take you 15 to 20 years to pay for. And let me tell you, that is not an accident.
Here's the proof. Since 1971, worker productivity, that's how much value you create for your company every hour, it has absolutely skyrocketed. But worker wages, they've stayed completely flat. So where did all that extra money go? Well, it sure didn't go to the people creating the value. Insiders have a slick name for this: capital efficiency. It's just a fancy way of saying companies are squeezing more and more value out of people without paying them for it. It's a fantastic system for owners and investors, but it is an absolute disaster for savers and employees.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the math behind this trap. This is the simple, powerful stuff that, for some reason, they never seem to teach in school. And it explains perfectly why just working harder is a losing strategy from the start. The secret key to unlocking this whole thing is a super simple formula called the Rule of 72. All you do is take the number 72 and divide it by your interest rate. The answer tells you exactly how many years it's going to take to double your money. It's an absolutely critical tool to figure out if your money is actually growing or if it's silently shrinking.
So, let's put that rule into practice, shall we? Your savings account is maybe earning 0.5%, right? 72 divided by 0.5, that means it will take you 144 years to double your money. Meanwhile, you've got this inflation monster running at, let's say, 7%. That's cutting the value of your money in half every 10 years or so. You are literally trying to run up an escalator that's going down. You are mathematically guaranteed to lose this game.
You know, the best way to picture this is with the bucket analogy. Imagine you're working your tail off, pouring your savings into a bucket, but the system has drilled a huge hole in the bottom called inflation. And that hole is draining your money out way faster than your faucet can pour it in. It doesn't matter how hard you work, you cannot outwork a math equation that is rigged against you.
Oh, but it gets worse. Yeah, on top of that whole inflation trap, there's another hidden layer that almost nobody talks about: the tax code. See, it's not just one set of rules for everybody. Nope. There are fundamentally two completely different sets of rules for how your money is treated, and it all depends on who you are.
If you're an employee, you're playing the game on the highest difficulty setting. Here's your cycle. First, you earn money. Then, before you even get your hands on it, the government immediately swoops in and takes its taxes. Finally, you get to spend and try to save whatever's left. You are taxed on the very first dollar you make.
But owners and investors, they're playing a completely different game with completely different rules. They earn money, then they spend that money on things to grow their business. Equipment, advertising, whatever. And only after all of that do they pay taxes on what's left over. I mean, think about that for a second. The employee saves after tax, the owner spends before tax. That one little shift is a game changer worth millions over a lifetime.
So how in the world do you escape this thing? The answer isn't about working harder or getting a promotion. It's about fundamentally changing the game you are playing. The only way out is to stop working for money and instead start acquiring assets that work for you. It's a total shift in how you see the world.
And forget all the complicated definitions you've heard. Here is the only one that you will ever need to know. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket, period. Even while you're sleeping. That's it. It's that simple.
And the opposite, of course, is a liability. It's anything that takes money out of your pocket. And this right here, this simple distinction, is where most people get tripped up. They spend their whole lives buying things they think are assets,
but are actually just liabilities in disguise.
Okay, let's break this down with some real-world stuff. Your primary home that you live in, nope, it takes money out of your pocket every month for taxes, insurance, repairs. That's a liability. Your car? Of course not. It costs you a fortune in gas and maintenance. It's a liability. But what about stocks that pay you dividends, or rental properties that generate monthly rent? A digital business that makes sales 24/7? Yes, yes, and yes. Those are assets. The wealthy spend their time and their money buying things that pay them to own them.
So you see, escaping the 40-year trap isn't about scrimping and saving a little more or hoping for a raise. It's about a fundamental, deep-down mindset shift. It's about going from being a consumer who buys liabilities to becoming an owner who acquires assets. And that brings us to the final and honestly the most important question. This is your first real step out of the trap. I want you to look at your own life right now. What is one liability you currently own that you could figure out how to turn into your very first income-producing asset? Seriously, the answer to that question, well, that's the beginning of your escape plan.